Special meeting of the Prairie City Council will be called to order at 4:45. Ms. Dickey, would you do a roll call with the quorum?
Council Brian Rowland.
Here.
Council Jonathan Randall.
Here.
Council Kendrick Jones.
Here. Council
Wendy Williams. Council Barnett. Here.
Thank you, ma'am. If we could stand for the pledge of invocation. Reverend Hayes, if you would be so kind as to do us the honors. That's Reverend Richard Hayes.
Oh, give thanks unto the Lord, for he is good, his mercy endure forever. Father, we thank you for the city of Prairie. We thank you for this county, for this community. Thank you for the board members. Bless everyone that's present. Pass your blessings on the agenda. Amen.
Amen. And we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now, this is a special meeting to discuss wastewater treatment facility and city water facility issues. So if we have some in the audience who have some information that they'd like to share with the council, this will be the time that you can come forward. Going once. Oh. Michelle.
Well, my name is Renee Young, and I do have some concerns with the rates of the water. I've been here since probably 20 years, over 20 years. And my water bill has gone from $44 to $200. I'm having water leaks. My habits haven't changed, but I have seen drastic changes in my water bill. I have statements that says that the service is from January 13th to 2007 through November 28, 2018. Instead of month to month, I have documents of that. I have been charged late fees when it's not wasn't late. My water pressure has been low for 2 years or more. I haven't been able to use my dishwasher. I had my water turned off November 15th through December 12th because I wanted to prove to a point that my water bill is always the same regardless of whether or not I'm there. I had some tenants that went out of town for the storm and also had their water turned off, and the water bill was higher than it was when they were there. My current bill, I didn't receive a current bill for my address, my residence, and I guess I got a combined bill for my tenants and my bill. So my problem is that the statements are not accurate at all. So I'm in the process of getting my bank statements, putting everything together, and I guess having an appointment with Ms. Dora. So, I mean, it's very inconsistent. You know, a bill from, let's say, the service from 2007 through 2018, that's a bit much. And I have all my records. So that is my concern.
And please include me in that meeting, Michelle,
Okay.
because I'd like to see that information. Anyone else in the audience have some information on the water, wastewater concern? Okay, we'll flip. Council?
Good evening, citizens. We felt it was needed that we have this town hall meeting to have an exchange or interaction between the citizens and your elected officials. There's been some concerns just like Ms. Young just stated in reference to bills, meters being read, not being read, the level of our wastewater treatment facility, the level of all these different things. And so we wanted to the goal was to have a town hall meeting where we can all talk publicly, but also engage the community to find out what are some of the issues, but also have some people here that can help work through some of the issues with us. And so, one of the, I guess, before we even get into wastewater treatment, I guess to speak on, an issue since Ms. Young just brought this issue up. Whether it be, who handles, Mr. Mayor, the process with the water bill, and what does that current process look like? So walk us council in the community, what does, if a person like, a citizen like Ms. Hill came in and said, and did her test.
What did you say? Would you ask Ms. Durham to join us now?
Yes.
Thanks. I'm sorry, because she needs to be with you. Okay. I asked about the process.
So Ms. Young gave an example about her water bill, and many other people who may have come in and have similar examples of their water bill. I wanted to know what is our process, and what is our process that we have that speaks to that. So a person comes in and says, my bill is too high, my bill's been this. Can you walk us through what that looks like and what so formally, it's more than just like, he said this and the city says this. What is our formal process so citizens can know?
Understand.
I
Okay.
want you to come over here so you're back to see. Thank you, ma'am.
When a customer comes in and they say that their bill is too high, what we do is I send the technicians back out to take a look at that meter, make sure it's operating accurately, and they generally sit there for a few minutes. There's a small dial on the meter itself, and if that little red dial is moving, it is indicating that there's a leak somewhere. So what we do is we check and make sure the leak is not on the city side. If it's on the customer side, then we will leave a notation letting the customer know that, hey, there's a leak. Now, in some cases where the bill is extremely high, and we know that something has to be wrong, either there was a misread or something occurred. And sometimes what we do is we take a 6-month average and we average out that customer's bill, and that's what they will pay for.
In other
We
words,
look at
give
their
them
history.
In other words,
Yes.
we give them a credit and working with
Yes.
them because there was something wrong with this bill based on
Yes.
their average
Yes.
usage.
Mm-hmm.
In that process, is there a document, is there a paper process, or what is the documentation that takes place?
Okay, I take a copy of the technician's form that he turns in to me, letting me know that either there was a leak, either something is wrong with the meter, or he didn't find anything wrong. I take that, and in the case where we do give an adjustment, I attach that form. I make a notation as to us giving them a credit, whether it was on the water or sewer side. But once I look at that history and take that 6-month average, I'll notate what happened and why I did it.
And Ms. Durham, I know that's more or less what we're doing now.
Right.
And you've been in a position for about 8 years. Is that
Right.
pretty close to what
Yeah.
the city has been doing?
Yes.
Working with residents?
Yes.
Okay, so a citizen brings that issue, you give them the copy of the technician's report. If it's on their side, we send them.
No, the technician actually puts a door tag on the door indicating, letting them know that there's a leak somewhere on the inside of their house.
So they're notified that there's a leak on their
Right,
side. And once
right.
they say this bill's too high,
Mhm.
I have an issue, we send a technician out.
Right,
Technician leaves some form of information on
Right.
the door.
if there's a
If there's a
leak.
leak.
Yes.
If there's not a leak, what do we tell the citizen?
I actually called that customer.
Okay.
Right, if the technicians go out there, they didn't find anything wrong, and I view their history, and the bill just seems to be similar to what their average usage is. You know, I tell them that we didn't find anything wrong, but if there's something wrong, if they come into the office, I will contact them and let them know what our findings were.
So,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
so after that part of the process takes place, if they have further disputes, then where does the
Then I suggest that they talk with the mayor. Yeah, because we've done everything that we could possibly do.
Mr. Mayor, what's the process after that?
Well, what we've done, in addition to what Mr. Irvin shared with you, and what I would suggest with yourself as well, Ms. Young, that we'll do. The wastewater bills have been a massive concern since the first day I became mayor. The complaints and concerns, and Mr. Irvin deals with it all day, every day. So one of the things I did, I got with the two Prairie, the plumbers, and they agreed, because actually it came from what happened at my own house. My water bill was a little crazy, and so what I did was I called in a plumber to check for leaks, because the guys had checked, but the meter wasn't running, and I just wanted to know, again, because I didn't see anything wrong. Long story short, what they found was, even though we had two brand-new commodes in our house, one of them wasn't closing, but it wasn't a constant. So you wouldn't see the meter reading because it wasn't constant. It's a brand-new commode. We hadn't been in the house for 2 years at the time. So when I found that out, I asked the plumbers if they would work with the city and our residents, because I'm thinking if it's happening to a brand-new commode, what's going on and how many others might this be a problem. But what they agreed to do was what we call a $45 leak check. I think what they charged me was like $75 or something like that. And I said, no, that's too high if we just check and want to work with our folks. So and we've sent them out a few times. And sometimes they found some things, and every now and then, in rare occasions, our guys have, because of a disability situation or something with whoever the person was, and Ms. Smith was one that had an inordinately large bill, and we saw something was stuck in her commode, keeping it from flushing. But the biggest issues have primarily been resolved with taking a look at the history, so we know what's going on, and yes, this is obviously a problem. And one of the things that we've been doing in working with Ms. Durham is we primarily credit the larger portion of the bill for sure, which was the sewage portion. Because if someone had a leak, they obviously weren't flushing the toilet or washing it. It was just a leak somewhere between the meter and one of their faucets or commodes, things like that. But I don't know that we've had anything outside of that we weren't able to resolve. And most of those, when we dived that deep into them, they didn't pop back up either. So it was, something at that moment in time, and we caught it, corrected, worked with the residents, and it took care of it, as we'll look to do with yourself. Yes, sir.
I just want to ask, just for clarification, Ms. Young, you said you have not yet met with Ms. Young.
No.
And how long has yours been going on, Ms. Young? Just to,
Off and on, probably about 1.5 years. I've even turned the toilets off, except for one in the house, to see if it made a difference, but it just
sure.
didn't happen.
Well, no, please get with us, and like you said, we'll give you time to put the paperwork together that you want us to look at.
Okay.
And then we'll see what we can do to basically correct it or find out what the problem is.
Okay.
No issue there. We've been really good. I think there might have been a couple of people that left mad, but that's, you know, out of all the people we meet with on water issues, that's real good.
I guess part of also the town hall meeting in reference to citizens and their water bills and our processes, I know we've talked about this several times. Are there gonna be any proposals or anything that comes to us that helps alleviate some of the concerns or complaints that citizens may be giving? So we have Ms. Young, for example, says it's been about 12 months, 15 months. She did some internal checks, but she has been communicating about an issue. Now, she said she hasn't sat down with Ms. Durham yet. I'm assuming, I don't know if someone has even went out there yet, so again, we're gonna follow our process, but if we say that many residents in the city are had a concern or something about their water, outside of giving a credit, what are we gonna do? Is there a plan, or is there something where we need, I know 2 years ago we talked about doing, maybe it could have been longer than that, 3 years ago, about changing out the meters, and so part of the conversation in the wastewater conversation, which was was USW, and so is there a plan, or is there a plan of action, is there a conversation to either incorporate things that we talked about before that we had a plan for? Looking at those concerns, we've had some we had some transition in employees, but what is the plan moving forward versus other than saying we're going to check it out and give people credits? Like, what is the overall plan to reduce the amount of complaints, to reduce the amount of leakage or overage or whatever it is that seems to be an issue? Because there's different issues for different people. What I'm trying to see is, as we are having this town hall meeting, is there something moving forward?
Yes, I'll respond to that, Council. A year ago, November, is when I got with the university, and long story short, some of you've heard about the Smart City research grant that we received. And the research on that, we'll be getting with, a part of that will be gathering information from as many residents as possible on all sorts of issues. One of the things that's incorporated in the Smart City grant are the meters. I know over the last 3-4 years, I think there have been a couple of companies that have come and shared what putting smart meters could do for accuracy and to help spot leaks before us or even the customer knows about them, for customers to even be able to monitor and be made aware of a leak on their line. So, because in taking a look at those costs, just to put the smart meters in was at least, give or take, somewhere around $1 million that we don't have, and we would have had to pass that on to the residents. We received the $100,000 research grant. As soon as potentially next month, there's going to be an opportunity to apply for one of the Smart City grants, which incorporates all that type of technology, so we can spot leaks, add security, all sorts of, but regarding the water sewer issues, it will be making us aware, us and the customer, because everything will be monitored in the office here as opposed to the guys running or misreads. Everything will be automated, and the research grant is somewhere between $1 to $2 million is what we're going after that would pay for all this. The other thing on a local note is we received a $350,000 grant to start with the oldest area with clay pipes in the city, the Alta Vista community, and we received that grant, and that status of that is they're doing the environmental phase now, and then they'll be able to go in and basically redo all the piping. One of the major issues that the city has, like all cities, with old pipes is the holes in the pipes, the infiltration that comes in from rain and all sorts of stuff in all the old pipes, water and sewer. So the Smart City Grant will really help us to facilitate putting in technology, much more than just the smart meters, but that whole smart meter program plus will allow us to be more aware of, on top, and catch those situations. Because again, you have two choices, because it's got to be paid for, and not wanting to pass that type of burden onto residents. That's when, I sought to go get some other money, and there's grant money out there for different things. It's just, and again, we've been blessed. We've got the water sewer James Muse $1 million grant that it should be going out to RFP, according to my meeting with the engineer this morning, in the next couple of weeks, and then they'll be digging, and that's just going to help really loop our water situation and improve our sewer situation. Well, most of this is on water, but the sewer situation, you'll hear more from USW on some of the things we've done to help assist with those things.
I guess my concern, and I guess council, I think in our last meeting, there was some information about the wastewater and water that we received. We want to just make sure, and again, I don't speak for all council, I can only speak for myself, is that whatever the city is doing, or the administration is doing to help better the city, that we be involved or informed. So when citizens ask us what is happening, we've been talking about $1 million grant this, $350,000 grant this, and I don't necessarily know anybody up here who's received anything on a plan or a project other than the letter that I got that says we've got $1 million. And so I want to make sure we're talking about apples and apples. In this, so how do we help support the administration in making sure? It's one of the issues on 2-3 years ago while we brought this up was the smart meters. Several companies came in, it's about $1 million to $1.5 million to be able to do that. The citizens don't pay for the meters, just like a bond for when you do streets. It's paid for over a period of time within your bill. So we want to make sure we're talking the correct terminology. So it's not you're going to have to pay for this to use something at a later date. This is something that we would do a bond for or put additional debt. So we're saying that if we pay this amount of money, the city pays this much money a month, and we're either, if let's use the number $100,000, just guesstimation, and we're crediting back $25,000. That's a loss to the city of $25,000. And so we're saying if we did the smart meters along with the plan on what the mayor talked about changing out the pipes in Alta Vista, putting a schedule on changing some of the pipes in the other surrounding communities, we start to shore up our system. USW has been involved with upgrading several lift stations and doing these things. So part of it is, where's the data? Where's the paperwork that connects these dots? Because just telling us this is happening when we got a bill from this company to do this, when we're saying, where's the savings? Because again, if we pay up front, whether it be $1.1 million or $1.5 million, if we can show over a period of time every year a savings of $15,000 or $10,000, that's $100,000 over $120,000 over a year. And so again, we would amortize this over a 20, 25, 30-year bond. So my thoughts and conversation is that when are we going to have that conversation? The $350,000 grant that you talked about before in Alta Vista, I don't know if council, I haven't received any documents that shows the schematics of a plan, how much money's been spent, and where are we at in this phase. That's how you move the project. Do we have any, or do we need to be in the project? No, but we should be able to know where we're at, communicate to our citizens if this amount of money has came out for that seems to be much. Oh yeah, but this is for this project. Be able to explain. Council's duty and role is to make sure that we connect with the budget and make sure that, and so the mayor has been moving the city forward. And so all I'm saying though, Mr. Mayor, is if we could connect those projects either with a timeline, a phase line, or some information, because for us to move forward, we have to have it. And so, not we, city council, the city has to have had it for them to have let the $350,000. So council should have a copy. On $1 million grant, the grant showed, the paperwork showed 2015 to 2020, to 5 years. We should be a part of a process to where we know exactly where we're at. And I'm just saying, versus just saying we have $1 million, citizens and city council should know currently where we're at in this process, because if we need to be having additional conversation about smart meters, the smart grant from the university, that's not going to help us get any meters. That grant is for data and research to get information. Can we use the data just like we sat down with TEEX and we got data from them? I don't know if you've looked into the Houston Chronicle today or this weekend's paper. It talked about the Waller County plan and the 98-page plan that the Texas A&M Extension did for them. Well, guess what? The city of Prairie View had a plan from TEEX 4 years ago. The question is, are we executing and moving through the plan? A plan, an unused plan. So when we connect back to where we at with water and wastewater, I think that we know the projects that we have on the ground. How do we connect these, project A with project B? Because again, I don't know when we'll talk about or go through talk about USW, but there's a connection to that. If we upgraded a lift station where Miss Young lives, there's a difference in her water reading for that month or whatever. If we had a line break or something break, we need to connect back. And so, kind of just trying to figure out where we, how do we council help move this heavy burden, because infrastructure should be our #1 priority.
Respond. The smart meter initial 100,000, you're right, is for the research, which we were blessed to receive that. Now, it requires the research grant before you can go after the couple of $1.5 million, $2 million, whatever that is. And I was thinking as you said that the smart meter people were here. It wasn't 2 or 3 years ago. It was more like 3 or 4 years ago. And there was Siemens and another one. 2.5. No, it's been more than that. I've been in a year and a half.
Yeah, it's about 5.
Yeah, it's about 5 years. Okay, but I'm saying that to say those things look good. They sounded good to me sitting in the audience. Council didn't act on them. Had nothing to do with that. My job and how council can help, because I like what you said. My job has been, as I sat as the only resident in a budget meeting about 4 years ago, the only non-elected, non-paid person in the room, and council was shifting money from here to there, and my position is you can't rob Peter to pay Paul, and Peter's broke. So I've been working on getting new revenue. Now, if council would be willing to help chart it, graph it, I'm all for that. Because when you say council doesn't know, in November of last year, a year ago, council at that time received everything. When the Texas Water Development Board came in, I just happened to have this September 2017 thing. I informed in my report everything that's going on that I'm involved with the city. The $1 million EDA grant on James Buse Parkway, the updating meeting with Nick, with public management, and our David Lindacker. The railroad and TxDOT permits are done. So the information has been forthcoming. There's nothing that I'm doing on behalf of the city that I have any reason to hide, so I've been putting it out there. Now, what you're probably running into, even though I've just been in a year and a half, is most of this stuff took place before you came back on the council. So that may be why you don't have it, and all you need to do is request it. But it's not that it wasn't. Some of the information was such that we had enough to give to everyone in the audience. So we've just been trying to make it work. Now, how it all comes together, when you want to chart those things and that sort of thing, I welcome whether you, other council members, or you want to chair a committee. I have no problem with that. I am busy trying to do two things. Fix what's here and bring in some new money, like the $12 million project, the $3 million student housing. That's where my focus has been in being responsible. But if you want someone who's going to plug all the numbers in, I can give them any of the data that they need between me and the folks that are doing it. But to go through charting it, that's not my forte, it's not my expertise, and not a job that I'm willing to take on. But answering any question you, council, or residents have as to what I'm doing, who we're doing it with, most of it's in the report, but anything else, I'd be glad to address as best I can. I have no problem with that, Councilman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is that I know over my short period of time on sitting on council, we've gotten several lift stations fixed. So is there, like, what's the documentation upon how much it's like saving our citizens?
Okay. If council looks in their packet, on the first page, you got a USW statement dated, I think this is 9/30/2017. And I think, Mr. Bostic, you updated it
Yes,
a
sir.
couple more months
Yes, sir.
as we met and talked.
Yes.
So I'll let you pass that out. And then, while we're on that, we'll let you respond. If you can give that updated one so council can have it. You just have a couple more months to mine, didn't you? And as you get ready to share, the information, the one thing I want you to start with, if you would,
Yes, sir.
is where were we when you all came on board? I mean, the status, and there's something of particular interest with yourself that I want to make sure you share with council and the residents, is it just, and I'll say it in case you can't say it. You used to work for Severn Trent in our area,
That's correct.
okay, before you went with USW and got into management.
Yes.
So you have a particular body of knowledge about where we were several years ago.
That is
And
correct.
if you would start that to share and then bring up to speed what y'all have done and to answer council's questions, and
Sure.
then we can go from there.
Sure. Okay, so I've been in the water wastewater industry for 15 years now. Started off at Severn Trent Services and had the opportunity to be one of the utility technicians out here for the city of Prairie View. When I was operating for the city of Prairie View, the facilities were already in need of repair, so major repair. And at that time, these issues were brought to the city's attention, but at that time, there was issues with funding some of the major maintenance that was needed for these facilities.
We didn't have the money.
Correct.
Okay. Funding sounds, okay, I just want to make sure everybody knows what you're talking about.
Correct.
Go ahead.
So, with that being said, moving further down the line, you know, I've had the opportunity to meet with the mayor and found that the city was in need for some operational help, and we were able to put together an emergency operations contract for the city to come in, and knowing the condition that the city was in, come in and do operations for the city of Prairie View. During the very beginning of the contract, we did what's called an initial facility assessment, which you'll see in your packet. On day one, we had all boots on the ground, and we went through all the facilities and notated the obvious, you know, what stuck out to us, and brought this facility assessment to the mayor's attention to get the green light on starting to make some of these repairs, depending on the cost of some of these repairs.
And this starts with what you refer to as the City of Prairie facility audit?
Yes, sir.
Okay, just want to make sure so council can follow.
It starts on page 3 of the report. So during that initial assessment and getting some of these items addressed, we found that we had some major issues with a couple of the lift stations. And that was with Old Houston as well as Greenfield's lift stations. They had Gorman Rump stormwater pumps instead of your submersible lift pumps. And they were also undersized. They're inadequate. I think they were 5 horsepower, and we have 7.5 horsepower in there now.
Can the audience hear him okay? Okay, go ahead, I'm sorry.
So with the mayor's approval, we came in and we upgraded those 2 lift stations. We started really digging into, at that point, we're probably a month or 2 months into operations and really started digging into the lift stations, finding out that there was some equipment pulled from some of the lift stations that hadn't been returned back to the lift stations, sitting at fabrication shops. We had to deal with some insurance claims from failures at these lift stations that we've been working on, which we've had, I believe, 6 insurance claims that we've been working with the city and TML on getting these lift stations back up to par.
Now, let's go back to you with 7 Trent. I think me and Mr. Uli, was that midnight, was that Greenfield?
Yes, sir.
Shortly after you all started? And I think you said when you were with 7 Trent, y'all had issues with Greenfield backing up. For the benefit of council and those present, would you tell us what that means or what it could cost the city from a TCQ violation standpoint?
Absolutely. Anytime you have a lift station that's charged and discharging influent onto the ground, that's an unauthorized discharge. That needs to be reported to the state. If that discharge makes it to any type of receiving stream and kills any fish aquatic life, you can be charged. You can be fined anywhere from $1,000 per fish or aquatic life. So those fines can get very costly to a city. So it was imperative to come in and fix these lift stations before TCQ got involved and started, writing fines to the city of Prairie for these failures. And this has been going on for some time. Anytime that there was a rain event, prior to taking over the city's operations with USW Utility Group, this is several years ago, those lift stations would back up and they would discharge influent onto the ground. We'd be out there all night long trying to get the lift stations back up and running, have Vector trucks out there working. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, just to backtrack a little bit. You said that the city basically had 6 insurance claims upon some of the lift stations that you guys fixed, right?
Yes, since we've been operating.
Okay, so that means that the city did have to spend any funds in getting any one of those 6 fixed?
That is correct. Some funds were not covered under the insurance claim. If you go to the very back page, you'll see I put together a cost versus insurance and payout variance spreadsheet. And so far, those are all the facilities that there's currently an insurance claim on, which is Ruby Road, Greenfield, Old Houston, Dooley Road, and both of the Richard Roads lift station as well as the water plant. So far, working with TML, we've been issued looks like a total of 6 payouts, and that's only for Ruby Road, Greenfield, and Old Houston. So those are the only ones that have been paid out on.
So, and to clarify, what we're looking at was the total, what it took to basically bring it up to standard was, say, $51,000. And the insurance paid $19,400 and $5,800, but the difference was where we upgraded them from storm water to sewer processing, because that's what we found out why they weren't working properly, because they weren't made to process sewage.
Right, we went from the Gorman rump pumps to submersible lift pumps in Ruby Road and, I'm sorry, Greenfield and lift stations.
No question. All right, my question is I appreciate, I also got the report you sent me a couple months back when I was looking at this. Two things. One, on where's the documentation that takes us through what you just communicated? Because one of the reasons why we're having this conversation is that we're just trying to make sure A equals B equals C. And because, so, you know, for prime example, this is the first time I've seen this as far as this last report. I know you just put this together. Every month when we get our monthly update, USW gives us a monthly update. In our conversations over the last 8 months since I've been back on council, I don't know about before, the conversation was simply, oh, the insurance is going to cover it, insurance is going to cover it. The 2 times on the 2 pumps, we went into a further conversation about Old Houston and Greenfield, when it was said that Serving Trent put in the wrong pump, and we went through that. That's why I had the insurance claim. There's been several other additions or changes to our wastewater treatment system, or not system, the lift stations. I asked to draw us a map to help take us through this process, because we had Serving and Trent in here who were professionals, who told us X, Y, and Z. We brought it back in-house. We had our own in-house person who was certified and had our own staff. Now we came back and using USW, who's been helping us move forward thus far. We're saying, I'm saying, well, I'm following what you're saying, but there's too many moving pieces. And so where is so you did the audit when you first came in.
That's correct.
So from your beginning audit to all the new changes in the lift station, we spent over $200,000 in upgrades. I need to be able to see a difference in my audit from when you came in to all these new pumps and new things we have, and I want to get to that conversation, because again, you've been educating us on where we've been. Now you know where we're trying to go, and so we need some more education, and we want to connect these dots, because like on the sheet you're showing, I know that, I don't know if the insurance only paid us a certain amount because it was because of depreciation. JJ, is that because of depreciation, or is that just because of the type of pumps? Because each time, didn't we upgrade and do something more and different than what we had? And so, isn't that the variance in the cost associated with why we paid more? So I want break that down to us so we can get to that.
Okay, there's multiple questions being asked in that statement, so I just want to make sure I get to all of them. So if I miss one, please let me know. But first, for the record, I don't know who installed those pumps. You know, it may have been Severn Trent, it may not have been Severn Trent. I did work for Severn Trent, you know, on these lift stations, so I just want to make sure that we clarify that, because I'm not sure if they installed the pumps or not. But as far as connecting the dots, we have a software system that we use for our work orders. Anytime we do work, we create a work order. Anytime we have contractors working for us, we create a work order to make sure that we're tracking that work as well. That system is called AVR. So every month I provide what's called a work order summary to the mayor, and also CC Mr. JJ Johnson on it as well. So that work that's being done for the city is being tracked in our software system, in our database. So we do have the data to pull for an engineer, for ourselves, to let the city know if there needs to be, you know, if we need to address a certain item. You know, if we see that there's been continuous, you know, let's say that there was a main line break at Alta Vista, you know, and we've been having this experience in this mainline break, you know, for the past 3 years, every third month. You know, we'd be able to track that and then go back and address that with the city and say, hey, look, you know, we're having this main break that occurs every 3 months for the past 3 years. We really need to look at this problem area. So we do have a system to be able to track and connect the dots for the city. You know, as far as, you know, cost savings, the city will see a cost savings in the long run. Did the city have to put up money to begin with to get the facilities up to date? Yes, absolutely. The insurance only covers a certain amount of coverage on the equipment, depending on what the failure is. So a lot of the work that's associated with having to go out there, troubleshoot what happened to the lift pump, pulling the lift pump, cleaning up the Vector services that we had to do out there, a lot of that is not covered by the insurance. So yes, the city had to bear some of that cost. But in the long run, you know, now with the lift stations being upgraded, the city will see a cost savings because we will no longer have to have Vector services out here, vectoring spills, unauthorized discharges. We won't have to come out here and pull the pumps as often and do maintenance as often on the pumps. Is there preventive maintenance involved? Absolutely.
And regarding preventive maintenance, you shared with me in your initial assessment that we had not been having maintenance and service done on the equipment, which is why some of it was in the state it was in, just like, you know, oil your car, you know, burn up the engine and things like that. But I do want to, Ms. Dickey, if you would make a note, I want to make sure you send to Ms. Dickey all the updated reports, information that you've been sharing with myself and Mr. Johnson.
Okay.
So that you can forward it to the council, because there's, you know, didn't know they wanted it, but they're probably sharing it, so we can make sure we get them all the information on this, on the work that's been done that they have a right to. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Absolutely, no problem.
Oh, now the other thing that that may help with Councilman Rowland's question, we've got quite a few. If you look, ladies and gentlemen, on page 3, at the top of each of those sets of numbers, where it says invoice number so-and-so, the first one says operation and compliance support. The second one says insurance claim. Third, fourth, and fifth show insurance claim, and 6 and 7. If you turn, I'm missing my second page. Because we've got several pieces of work you've done for us that we're now filing under FEMA. That FEMA's covering, that went out through the hurricane, and then we even had some that fell through the freeze.
Yes, sir.
Where me and Mr. Huey was out there Christmas Eve, only who like me, go out there with the water, that was the water tank.
Yeah,
The water tank kicked on, yeah. So those FEMA claims, so while we're looking, a certain portion of it, and we have to get them that other sheet, because I had a sheet that also showed the,
Yes, sir. On
things besides
the page
insurance.
before the last page, you should have a FEMA damage inventory spreadsheet,
okay.
and that lists the FEMA claims that we.
So the damage inventory sheet, they need to add the word FEMA to that.
Yes, this is the
Okay.
one that was provided from FEMA. So,
Okay.
but I can definitely update it and add FEMA to this.
Councilman?
My question is, so I hear that, basically it will be covered under FEMA. Is that how the expense paid for, or with the city?
No, FEMA's almost like the insurance claim. They may cover what triggered it, like if it was lightning that blew out something, but then maybe it also affected something else because it went out. They may pay for the lightning portion and not the other, similar to what TML would pay for certain parts, but like, for example, they would pay that the storm water pumps stopped working, but they would not pay to upgrade the incorrect pumps.
That's correct.
And that's what we pay for, so it's like that.
All right, I somewhere see like where the problem lies amongst like council and, thank you, USW for like moving the city forward, but it's like, we not on the same page, so like, when I hear that like, all right, the insurance will cover it, I'm not thinking that council or the city, well, city rather than council, but the city is like, will have to pay like $5,000 or $6,000. We don't see it until, Mr. JJ come up and give us a report, and we like, hold on, we thought this was covered underneath the insurance. And then it's like, well, hold on, USW is charging us for what? And then to also make sure everybody is covering themselves. At one point in time, as Mr. Rowland said, that everything basically we thought like was making progress and going down the right steps. And then let's say one day you guys up and leave, and somebody else come right back in and say, well, USW, they did such and such, and then the next mayor has to make insurance claims upon this. It's like, we think we're taking 2 steps forward, but like we're taking 5 steps backwards, so it's just communication.
Absolutely. I can CC Ms. Dickey on all the invoices and work order
To forward
summaries.
to council.
Right,
Okay.
absolutely.
But keep in mind, Mr. Johnson,
Yes.
do you remember how long ago it was when we had the discussion in front of council about the need to upgrade from storm water to sewage treatment pumps? Was that, I guess that was just before some of the current council members came in?
That was during the summer
They were
of
here.
17.
They were here.
Okay, so it was toward the beginning. So, and I'm saying that to say, Mr. Johnson, in his presentation of, because I think you shared with us how much money we had in that type of public works to be used for that kind of thing or something along those natures. So, and I'm only saying this to make sure council understands, everything's been coming before council. Now, what you do with it, what you keep up with, that part, none of us can control. But the information's been forthcoming, even through Mr. Johnson's reporting of this is gonna be what it takes to fix it. And I think you shared with us what TML said, the difference in the upgrade. So none of this part is new. I just wanna make sure it's been some months, but it's not new.
I think this is where I guess the disconnect comes from my opinion, because you're right, the information was communicated to us, but at the same time, it wasn't, once the work had been done, it wasn't communicated to us that it was done and we paid X amount of dollars to us. And then two, there's a difference between telling us something's been done and providing us documentation saying that, hey, this is what's been done, this is how much it costs. And, you know, you may tell us something, but, you know, just like most people, if you tell us something and we walk out a week, 2 weeks later, you can't remember everything that we've been told. So I think the issue is that there's no paper trail, or we don't have the paper trail. I'm sure you have it, you know, but, you know, like you said, it's just a matter of us being able to put our hands on documents. So if somebody asks us, you know, why, you know, when we have to make an explanation why this bill is so high, we can say, hey, this is what the city's been doing on your behalf.
Is receiving that information via email, the past and going forward, is that acceptable to council? That's okay. So we just make sure, basically what you sent me, you copy Ms. Dickey to share with council, and
Absolutely.
we'll make sure to get the
That's
information.
not a problem.
Well, I don't know if this may be asking for too much, but I know, like, let's say when Chief Solomon gives us his report, he gives us the documentation, like the numbers, or however, like what happened within a month. If you don't mind, like when we come to the meeting and you give your report, just to give us basically a breakdown of what you.
Yes, sir. That's not a problem. That'll also be included in the report.
I had a question about the additional operational services. On our last budget meeting, there was an expenditure, so I guess walk us through, Mr. Mayor. Are we behind in payments to USW? How has insurance moved? How has the insurance came in, and have we made those payments? Communicate that to us, because there was a $151,000 payment that showed up on our last balance statement, which brought up the conversation about reconciliation. you can say that we're gonna do this upgrade, it's needed, so we're not against it. But when we reconcile, we need to know that the pump costs 30, insurance paid 15, and the additional was 15,000 that's what we have to pay. And I think connecting those dots, but also, again, right now, I know where we've had Hurricane Harvey, we just had this freeze. I want from USW to help us map out what we're doing. On here it shows, and I'm assuming all these facilities, 4 are part of the plan, and I'm assuming, and then there's 2 from the FEMA, so that would be 6. So if we've now put money in and upgraded these plans, we should be seeing either the cost savings in less responses from customers, less responses in calls and to the maintenance or the backflow. But I can't see all this, and you can tell me about it, but I need to be able, because if USW leaves us 5 years from now, we need to be able to not allow what other companies came in and said, well, they didn't do this right, or they didn't do this, or who didn't do this. We're relying on professional people to give us professional recommendations. So we want to make sure that council helps drive what it is we need to see to make sure we're guiding the ship along with the mayor as he moves the city. And so, again, I know we've been kind of talking around this for some time about helping us to say if we have 10 lift stations and, we've changed out 7 of them, where are those at? What about the other things that go with that, with knowing we're getting ready to add, home, beds or apartments or all these other things that are going to come on top of it. We need to be knowing where we at with our capacity, where we're at with our efficiency, and I don't necessarily know if any council member got that. Now, the mayor may have got it, and it's about communication. That's why we're having a town hall. But I think once we start getting these things and can map out, that helps us to move forward. But can you speak to the $151,000 payment from last month, Mr. Mayor?
Sure. And payments before that. We have a meeting upcoming later this week with FEMA. The Hurricane Harvey hit what? August? Okay. We had to pay and fix everything that stopped working as a result of that excess, not just water, but the debris that went in and clogged up this, that, and the other. Yet, the FEMA money, the meetings haven't even finished. This is one of those primary meetings to get to the core of, everything and go over the numbers, and that combined with a lot of the leakage and damage to the building that we sit in. So when you look at something breaks, and let me respond to one of the statements you made, because you reminded me of something. We have had a heck of a lot less complaints about water backing up in people's homes when we have heavy rain. And matter of fact, during the hurricane, we had a lot less calls than we had during a regular rain. So the system is definitely working much better. Mr. Huey, you had a comment please share that with the council and the residents, because I just heard it earlier today.
Good afternoon, council.
You tell me everything, and that's not true, but go ahead.
At the last meeting that we had a resident, I don't know her name, but she did ask if I was with the water company. I said, yes, ma'am. And during the hurricane, she was able to flush her toilets, which she said she wasn't able to do after any major rain event. And her water pump, she said she's never had that after every major rain event. And so she said, congratulations, and told us to keep on doing what we're doing. We're doing an excellent job.
Good, thank you for sharing. And again, I'm glad you mentioned that in passing. But the improvement, even if you look on the last page, council, with the open balance report, notice that the only insurance payments so far have been for Ruby Road, Greenfield, and Old Houston. Those are our 3 worst, and the ones that took, quite a bit of work. And those are the ones the insurance claims have been processed on. if you notice, the other 1, 2, 3, 4 all have zeros because the money hasn't come in from that work as yet. And when you add in the, again, FEMA's an insurance claim. Now, while we're saying insurance, let me make sure everybody understands how insurance works. Whenever you file an insurance claim, because I've never represented that insurance was going to pay dollar for dollar, because they never have. They depreciate, they don't pay the whole thing, you know. So that may have been just an assumption on my part that people understood how insurance works. But when you file an insurance claim, if you say you have $100 in damage, whether it's depreciation, they give you 75 or 80, or whether they give you 50 and say we don't cover the other 50, it's an insurance claim, but that doesn't mean insurance is paying the whole thing. And I can't tell you what they are or aren't going to pay until their adjusters go over it and let us know this is all we pay for that and why. And TML, his IRP, has done a great job of giving that breakdown. So yes, we could say they were insurance claims, but that doesn't mean insurance was going to pay 100% of it because they never do. Yes, sir.
No, I just want to be clear on my statement. I'm young, but I'm not ignorant. I kind of figure how insurance works. The reason why I made that statement was due to the fact that me knowing how insurance works, insurance company also, as you stated, tells you how much you have to cover on the back end. I don't think council has ever gotten a report of how much the city was going to have to cover on the opposite end. So when we hear, oh, such and such, JJ say, well, this might cost $1,100. And then the mayor says, oh, the insurance will take care of that. Not saying upon, oh, the insurance is only, well, we have documentation from USW that they will only cover $7,000, so we have to cover the other 4. So all I was basically trying to say is just to be more transparent and actually get documentation back upon, okay, insurance covered this amount, how much money does the city have to cover on the opposite end, as well as making sure that the service and work that they're doing is actually benefiting our customers and their water bill staying at a satisfying rate and not keep going higher and higher due to pumps and everything getting fixed. But thank you for the work that you guys have been doing and continue to do a great job.
I have my question.
Yes.
One of the things that came up was, USW has, so one, I still wanted to find out the $151,000 that was paid out last month. Can you connect what that was for that went to USW? 2, in USW's contract, they came in, they did an assessment, they've been helping us get up to speed. The outstanding, I guess so I can be very clear on this, what is the additional operational services, what is that amount? And what?
Associated with?
Huh?
What is that amount
Yeah,
associated
what
with?
is that?
Okay, yes. So to answer your question about the $151,000, that was for the 3 lift station upgrades. That was, from what I understand, the city had bond money for improvements to improve lift stations. And since we had an insurance claim out at Greenfield and Old Houston, the city was, they're talking with the mayor and making this decision to upgrade these facilities because the equipment that was in the facilities was inadequate for those lift stations. So I brought to the mayor cost on replacing the equipment that was currently there with the equipment that was currently there, or upgrading the lift station with the proper equipment, submersible wastewater lift pumps. So with the $19,419, it was the cost to the city for upgrading that lift station was going to be $51,000 to upgrade Old Houston. Let's just look at Old Houston. And the insurance payout was a total of $19,000. So the actual cost to the city to upgrade that lift station was roughly around $30,000. So that, you know, do you offset to get something new and get it fixing in the condition and be able to move forward and have the capacity that you need? I think that was a good decision, you know, to upgrade those particular lift
I
stations.
guess what I'm trying to follow, you're saying 30,000. So if we're looking at Old Houston, you have payout 1, payout 2, and payout 3. That's 70. I'm assuming both of those equals. That's
Right.
so it's the $76,000, right?
That's correct.
Now, out of the $76,000, and then 51,000 of it was an upgrade.
That's correct.
The insurance only paid $19,000, correct?
That is correct.
And so so the city owed the 51. Talk to us about the cost, total cost associated, the 90 and all this. I'm not understanding this additional breakdown in a variance of only 13, because we pay more than that, so I don't make me understand it.
Okay, so the total cost associated was the $51,000 to upgrade the lift station, plus all the maintenance that was associated with that lift station, like the Vector services having to come out every time there's an unauthorized discharge. That's also our operator having to go out at night, you know, responding to the auto dialer call out of the lift station being in a high level. That's also maintenance technicians going out having to pull the equipment, the old equipment that was there. This equipment is now new at these particular lift stations, so moving forward, you shouldn't see these costs that are applied to these particular lift stations. But to get back to the question at hand, the total cost associated was $81,000 less that $76,979, which was the city's bond money of $51,000 plus the payout from the insurance company of $5,000 and $19,000. So the city had $76,000 to apply to that $81,000 it cost to get this lift station back in normal operations, which left a variance of $4,173 actual cost to the city, other than the bond money and the insurance company.
And let me correct you just for clarification a little bit, Mr. Boston, because I think it'll help. A new lift station runs somewhere around $200,000. When we say upgrade this, that's actually kind of misrepresented in a sense. Only in that what was there was not correct. So it really wasn't upgraded, it was made right. Mr. Perry came in this room somewhere around 4 years ago and told the then sitting council members that this backage up in his yard at Greenfield had been going on some 20 years. 20 years. The damage he could have caused the city behind that kind of stuff, not to mention him putting up with it. This wasn't an upgrade. This was correcting what was wrong. And because it was so old, and the city only had Severn Trent a few years, I would say this thing was in before Severn Trent with the way it looked. So I can't say like you that Severn Trent put in storm water, you know, to cut costs or something, but someone did. So it wasn't really an upgrade. This was putting in the correct lift station, which has functioned. Am I right, Mr. Huey?
Yes.
During our bad times, we have not had those backups we had that kept us out there at midnight that night and 10 o'clock the next night.
Yes.
So now those companies, one of them had that big hose thing.
Yeah, that was a Vector service.
And they come out from Houston, and I gather they're expensive just by looking at the truck. And then you had the other folks who dug down into the lift station, totally separate company. You know, and those folks in dealing with the sewage stuff are, I'm sure, and understandably pretty expensive. But I think upgrade in this situation when we had the wrong stuff might be a little misleading. And it just took more to make it right. Yes, sir.
I guess, and the reason why I asked the question, so thank you for the clarification. We've seen the 150 $1,000 last month. And so I wanted to be very clear on how things are being billed and what they look like to us. And so thank you for that clarification. The two questions I have around wastewater or lift station is that the city, to ask the mayor, we approved a resolution that came to us from Prairie's Economic Development Corporation funds to be used for engineering project costs for impact study for water and sanitary sewer. We allocated $4,000, and so I wanted to know. 14, I said 4? Thank you. 14,000. I wanted to know where are we at with that, because that has to tie into, again, everything we've been talking about.
I met with Mr. Linedecker recently this afternoon on several of the projects in our city, and he just has not, with his other engineering city obligations, he has not done it yet, but promises to get to it relatively soon.
Do we have a date? Because we could have went with, and part of it is that we chose, with the RFP and going, why we chose to do Mr. Linedecker's company for the straight fee, because he knew what was going on with the city. But if we were saying that if, this is dated May 8th, 2017, and so if we're saying that it's going to take that long, we need to look at going with someone else to do the study if infrastructure is kind of number one of our priority. And the second thing is that have you, through your conversations with the university, where are we at with the water rate? Because again, that kind of connects us back to, and we're about to have the regular meeting.
Mr. Linedecker's letter is dated May, but council didn't approve that for several months. So that was when I asked him to give us something to bring to, first they had to go to the EDC, which I don't know, took a couple months. Then it had to come to council, and it wasn't approved right away. But that's the state of what he shared with me as recent as earlier today. The wastewater treatment situation with the university, Councilwoman Wendy Williams and myself, we had a meeting with a couple of the university administrative officials, and they're willing to work with us, as they and I had discussed previously. They haven't had an opportunity to do the study that I'm insisting that they do, which is take a look at a non-rain period and get an average daily, weekly rate of what they meter on behalf of the city. Because I recall former Mayor Jackson and Mr. Alexander, our wastewater supervisor, both saying that the university processes 150 to 200,000 gallons of sewage for the city each day. When it rains, that number goes up to 700,000. So that's the argument that I shared with the university administration, and it took a while, but they bought it. Now they're doing their study. They just recently redid their wastewater treatment plant contract. I don't know if that's a part of it, but they're working with us on looking to go back and give us credits for the processing of rainwater versus rain sewer.
Do you currently have a plan, or currently have some paper, some facts, something that we could look at? One of the situations is that we know for what we heard of, that the rate increased about 15 months ago.
No, it's a little bit more than that, because it was about 6 months before I took office.
Okay, so whatever the time period, so at least 2 years then.
Yes, somewhat like that.
The rates increased. Citizens are talking about the water bill is high. If the basic rate was $4 plus however much water you consume, and the rate has doubled, increased, so that means it would be $8 plus whatever you consume. The city of Prairie View is only paying half the bill. The citizens are paying, we're paying, what, 40%?
35.
So citizens are paying their bill at $4 instead of the $8 that the rate has gone to over the last 2 years. The city is getting the bill 3 months late,
Correct.
3 months late, and we're paying 35 to 40% of the bill. Our current rate of what we owe the university is back to $400,000. We've been talking about negotiating, we've been talking about moving forward plans, and what are we going to do as far as a solution to moving this forward that where we can actually, at some point, the bill's not going to go away. And so the question is, what are we going to do to help, reduce that? Because again, we're going to have to pay it.
Well, you make an assumption, first off, that I want to correct you on.
Okay.
Because the whole premise of having them research the, I'll just say extra 500,000 or so gallons of infiltration is to go after crediting. And they're agreeing on that should those numbers come out. And based on the amount of infiltration that even my predecessor, Mayor Jackson, shared along with his supervisor, I know those numbers and the number of holes that we fixed just in the last 18 months, that they are willing to work with us and give us credit. So that's why, and the other side of that, which is real basic to me, we don't have the money to pay them. So I'd be curious as to what it is you want us to rush to, because we can't pay the bill. Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, my question is, which I hear that you do say that you're gonna meet with them and so graciously and moving forward. But what I would like to know is, like, how could we say things have doubled when I don't think any one of us know the original rate? So I know it'd be hard for me to say that anything has doubled or tripled, but I don't even know what the rate was to begin with.
You mean in terms of the increase from the university?
Yes, sir. Like,
Okay,
what is the
Mr.
rate?
Johnson, if you could get that to us, because again, it took place before I came in. But I will say this that I got from the university administration. They, and as I understand it, it came down from the A&M system. The university was charging the city whatever the rate was prior to the increase. And what happened was, many of us know the university went to outsourcing, is it CCS?
SSC.
SSC, okay. The university brought in SSC to oversee their outsourcing. Then SSC brought in Severn Trent to do the actual work that affects us. The system pointed out to the university that those extra charges, those two extra admin charges, or admin and operational, were not being passed on, and that's how the rate and what the rate went to. And Mr. Johnson can share the before and after, because it increased before I got here as well. But that's the revenue that we're talking about. Yes, sir, and we'll make this the last one so we can start, because it's just after 6:30.
In the kind of the pushback of what the administrative fee, we shouldn't have been charged administrative fee, which is part of why I think council have wanted you to move forward and have meetings with the university for the last 15 months, is because the administrative fee, again, the university's not in the business of wastewater treatment. We know this. Part of it is if option A is the university, from that, if we can't pay the bill or whatever you're saying, to do our own wastewater treatment facility, whatever that plan is or whatever that looks like, we're saying that, are we just in a waiting pattern and just waiting to see what happens, and then we pass that, we figure it out when we get there? Or do we want to lead and try to come up with some plans so we have several options when, A doesn't work or B doesn't work? And so part of it is like, what are we going to do to move forward? Again, Severn Trent came into contract with the university because Severn Trent first had a contract with the city. So we actually walked them through the door. So they shouldn't have passed on any administrative fee to us because again, the city is only doing the wastewater treatment and not all the other services. And so part of your negotiating on what you've been doing for the last 15 months should have been establishing a baseline based upon the data and information that you said that happened prior to your administration of where we at moving forward. And so, again, we need to figure out a plan on how we're going to move forward with the bill to the university, but also in partnership. The university's purchased some property. They're going to need water services. We've just brought on Jones Elementary. They need water services. We need to get our water pressure issues worked out. So again, there's a lot of moving pieces, and I don't say one person has all the answers, but we're saying that if we're working to move this forward, we need to start connecting the dots, and so the information will help us to do it.
Well, I know I brought, I don't know, 5-6 months ago, at least one engineering company here to take a look at, and the council totally distraught that. So moving forward on it is something that's been taking place the whole time. I shared with council September about a meeting with the Texas Water Development Board and their interest rates that are lower than bond rates on potential financing. So again, I appreciate what you're saying, but the moving forward, the who at least I've met with in trying to eradicate the situation, that's something, and you say 18 months. When I first came on, I didn't realize the city had a $150,000 bill that it hadn't been paying. I didn't find that out until the September, October budget time. So that's when I found out about the real increase in the rates and that sort of thing. As a matter of fact, Mr. Johnson, if I'm not correct, it was increased a while before you found out.
Yeah.
You see, so it had gone on, but this I can share, and what I'll do in the next couple of meetings, I'll make sure the people and some of the potential proposals for a new wastewater treatment plant for the city, some of them we're ready to bring in front of the council. As a matter of fact, USW, that's something else that they do, so they're bringing us a proposal. So in between everything else, that has definitely been something that we've been trying to work with. So when you ask about the plan, is it in writing? No. Have you been informed about it? Every time we meet. So on one hand, we're trying to cut a bill that we don't have the money to pay, and on the other, looking to bring in, so we bring those services in-house, which I think would be much less than what we're paying the university, even prior to the increase. But we'll, and again, just like with USWs, I sat in these meetings for about 5 years, and I never heard council discussing wanting to receive this type of information. So it wasn't obvious to me that you wanted it. But the fact that you want to is not a problem. We're going to take care of that right away, even going back to 12 months that you guys have been here, so that they see everything that you've been doing and that
That's
sort
great,
of
it's not a
thing.
problem.
And anything else that council wants to see, not a problem with making that forthcoming. Thank you, gentlemen. We're going
Thank
to
you.
close this session. If we can get a motion so we can open up for our regular council meeting. I so move that this special meeting be closed. It's been properly moved and seconded that the meeting be closed. Yes, I can. The chair can make a motion.